Okay, good morning and welcome to Iyun with Benzion. We're learning Maseches Yevamos Daf Samach Dal 64. We have amazing share for you today about Iyun, the lomdus of the mitzvah of Puruvu. The question I have for you today is, if you are not Mekaya in mitzvah of Puruvu, you do not have children, will you just mavatal on mitzvah's essay, right? It's like the Gemara says in Brachos, Avar Tzmano Batal Karbono, if you miss Kriya Shema, right, or Chaverim come do a mitzvah and you don't join them, so Avar Tzmano, the time for Kriya Shema passed, Batal Karbono, you missed out on the mitzvah, the Korban, you didn't become a Korban, right? So you neglected a mitzvah's essay. The punishment for that is different than we learned something called an Isser essay. For example, by a Kohen Gadol, Kim Psula Mama V'Yikach Isha, he has to marry a woman who's not a Va'ula. A Psula, if she marries a Va'ula, one woman who was previously together with another man, so then he violates an Isser essay. So do you violate an Isser? Is there an Isser attached to not having children? What is the Geder of Pru or Vu? So let's dive right into it. We started with Sam Gilon Biz on the bottom today, and this really reflects, I think, an opinion over here. The Gemara says, someone who Amar Elazar, if he's not engaging in Pru or Vu, he is Shovech Damim, he is a murderer. He's equated to a murderer. We learned that from Noach, the Bnei Noach. After Noach, the Mabul, and Noach was saved from the Mabul, Hashem gave them some laws. These ostensibly were for Bnei Noach. And they said that you're a murderer. It sounds like a murderer is something you're not allowed to do. So it sounds like an Isser. But then again, we know that Pru is a mitzvah. It says Pru. It's a mitzvah's essay in the Torah. If you look in the Sefer Achiach, it's a mitzvah's essay. So which one is it? Adding on to this discussion over here is the story of Ben Azai. Ben Azai was a bachelor. He never got married. Nafshi Chashka b'Torah. How could he, if there's a, if it's a mitzvah, do Pru, right? So you hear an ones, right? There's a concept. I think this is the distinction between a mitzvah essay and an Isser essay. That if you do a mitzvah essay and there's an onus, meaning there's something unforeseeable, you get sick or you can't do it, Hashem doesn't expect you to do it. There's no responsibility. You bear no responsibility for not doing it. If it's an Isser essay, then even if you do it ba'ones, we know if you do Averos ba'ones, we say in Yom Kippur, right, ba'ones or ratzon, you're punished for even Averos you do ba'ones because you brought yourself to that position to be over an Isser. And Isser in the Torah is more chomer than just not doing a mitzvah. So, how could he not do this? So, I'd like to suggest over here that the Gemara on Samach Beis previously mentioned two things. I mentioned, for example, the Gemara says, Machlokas Ren Yochanan and Reish Lakish on Samach Beis Amud Aleph, if you had children, two non-Jewish people, they had children while they were, even a son and a daughter, when they were not Jewish, and they converted. Were they Yotzi the mitzvah Puruvu? Rabbi Yochanan will be passing like says they were. Why? Because they had children when they're non-Jewish. They weren't Jewish. They weren't Mekayim in the mitzvah. Because it says L'Sheves Yitzara. They did Sheves. They did Sheves. We're doing Sheves is something else in the Torah. So L'Sheves Yitzara. Hashem didn't create the world to be desolate. There's a pasuk in the Nevi'im. Hashem didn't create the world desolate. He created the world to be inhabited. So, what is it? Puravu L'Sheves Yitzara. I'd like to say this is exactly what's going on over here. The Gemara on Simon Gilon Beis is saying for Bnei Noach. That's what he said. He says L'Sheves Yitzara, and they had children when they were goyim. So they asked Rabbi Yochanan, how can you say that when they were goyim, they weren't mitzvah in the mitzvahs? Puravu is not one of the Zayim mitzvahs of Bnei Noach. But you're right, it's not one of the Zayim mitzvahs of Bnei Noach. But we learned from the parsha after Noach that was instructed to Dafka the Bnei Noach after the Mabul. After they came out of the Teva, Shofech Adam, you're compared to a murderer. That's an Isser. Murdering someone is an Isser. So if you don't engage in Puravu, then you're a murderer. So even though one of the Zayim mitzvahs of Noach is not to have children, Puravu is not one of the Zayim mitzvahs of Noach, but there is an Isser to not engage in Puravu, not to try to have children. So I would say like this, that not trying to have children, in Mavatal the mitzvah. And where is that learned from? That is learned out from L'Sheves Yitzara. The Torah tells you the world was not created to be desolate, the world was created to be inhabited. It says in the Nevi'im. The Gemara repeats this a couple times on Samach Beis, Samach Beis, that even though sometimes you're not, Puravu is having a boy and a girl, L'Sheves Yitzara is having one child, would be a Kiyum, the Gemara says at one point, having one child, according to Beis Hillel, even though you're not Mekayim Puruvu, at least you're Mekayim L'Sheves Yitzara, who inhabit the world. It makes sense, right? Because if you're one person and you have one child, right? So you're Miyashiv of the world, because when you die, the child will replace you. Puruvu is addition to that is to have a boy and a girl, because a boy and a girl are each capable. They can't be together because they're brother and sister, but they're each capable of finding a mate. So you're already creating a future generation. Creating a boy and a girl, you're creating a man and a woman. You're creating another generation. So it's continuing to propagate the world. It's more than just inhabiting the world. It's providing for that child can continue on to the next generation. And that's the mitzvah approval. The mitzvah approval is up and above. It's a mitzvah's essay. The basic Isser essay is to not try to have children and not inhabit the world. If you have one child, this is a big chiddush. You'd be Mekayim L'Shevet Yitzara. You wouldn't be over the Isser of Shovich Damim, of Isser essay. You'd be inhabit the world, but you wouldn't be Mekayim mitzvah approval. So therefore, that's what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara is saying that, and that's what the Gemara says on Samach Dalet and Aleph. The Gemara says, it's like the Gemara gives a mashal as 22,000 people, the Shechina Shor al Yisrael. Let's say you're 21,999, and you decide not to have a child, right? Because who's the child? The child is going to be number 22,000, right? But what do you mean? Prove you have to have two children. It should be 22,001. No, because when it comes to the Isser, this is what the Gemara is talking about on the bottom of Samach Dalet and Aleph. The Isser essay, the Isser of not fulfilling the mitzvah essay, it's an Isser not to want to engage in inhabiting the world. Right, so to find someone to replace yourself would be enough to inhabit the world. That's inhabiting the world. You're making a mark in this world. You're inhabiting the world. You're not giving the ability for future generations to propagate, but you are inhabiting the world. Continuation. He's replacing you. The child is replacing you, and that's why only one child is necessary when it comes to the Isser. And the Mishnah, it says Nasa Isha and Nasa Isha Shalima Isser Shalom. There's a discussion, right? It says you have to get married to a woman, and you did have Velo Yalda. Yalda seems the what? Yalda seems that even one child doesn't have any children, right? What do you mean? It should say he didn't kind of pruravu, right? He didn't have a boy and a girl. Until you have a boy and a girl, so it seems it's a machlokas, I think, in the poskim about this. But it would seem from the Mishnah, it's only talking about if you didn't have a child. If you had one child, you can stay married to the woman the rest of your life. Why is that? Because the Gemara is saying once you have one child, right? So then you violate the Isser essay. You're not responsible for, right? You're an onus. When you marry a woman, you don't have children. It's an onus. It's not your fault, right? Hashem doesn't want you to have children, so you can remain married to her as long as you had one child. As long as you have one child, so you're Mekayim L'Shevet Yitzara. Regarding having a boy and a girl, that's an onus, right? For example, a person gets married to a woman, and he has 7 girls or 7 boys. The mitzvah, according to Beis Hillel, is to have a boy and a girl. So what are you going to say? He has to keep on having children for the rest of his life? He has to marry, a wife dies and goes to menopause, he has to marry another woman just to have children? No. As long as you had one child, or you tried to have children, you tried your best, so then, at least if you had one child, you're Mekayim L'Shevet Yitzara, you're not nafik, you're not part of the Isser essay anymore. But there's still a mitzvah's essay to try to have children, and if you financially or just it doesn't work in your house to have more children, you can't emotionally deal with more children, so you tried to have children. You tried to have 2 children. I would say after 2 children, you had a boy and 2 girls or 2 boys. You already tried, you did your effort. You're an honest at that point. You wouldn't have to make a mitzvah essay, and that would also explain Ben Azai. How could he was na doresh and na makayim nafshi chashka b'torah. The Rambam passing is like this. You learn cold. You don't want to get married. It's okay, technically okay, because maybe the explanation is that when someone is learning Torah, he's going to obviously teach the Torah to other people. So even though he doesn't have progeny and doesn't have someone to replace him, because he teaches the Torah to other people, he's marbit's Torah to other people, so therefore he did inhabit the world in some way. He gave over something, right? Sometimes people leave a nice piece of art, a nice sculpture, they leave a nice building, they leave a nice, story, whatever, a book, movie, whatever. They've left their imprint on the world. They haven't caused propagation of the world into future generations, but he wasn't responsible for the Isra essay because he was Miyashi of the world. He really had attachment to the Torah. He really learned the Torah and taught the Torah properly. Hope you enjoyed today's shiur. It's very fundamental in terms of understanding Puravu. It answers a lot of questions. See you in Mishnah Yom.